Hello and good morning, my wonderful asynchronous students. I'm just going to quickly go over some finishing touches for our cars that you guys can work on for Asynchronous Friday. So I'm just going to hop into a very standard car design and show you guys what you should focus on for today. So this is a pretty good car. This would probably get 100. All the features we need are here, but there's some additional things that we can do to make our car perfect. So one very common problem that we have on our cars is that our wheels are not round. In addition, to print this car, we can't print the axle inside of the axle hole, or else the axle will fuse to the body of the car because it prints as liquid, it prints as molten liquid plastic. And if we print this inside of here, it's going to drip that molten liquid plastic inside of the body of our car, and we're just going to get a solid block. We're not going to get a axle that spins inside of that wheel. So when you guys have a car that looks like this, we need to do a few finishing touches to make it printable. So the first step is you're going to want to pull these wheels out. You might have to ungroup your car in order to get to a place where you can pull your wheels out. Once your wheels are out, we're still not done. The next problem is that, let's say we printed this like this right now. We have no way to put our axle through this hole because these wheels would be fused to this axle, and there would be no way to push this axle through this hole. So then we're going to have to ungroup this, and we're going to have to pull one of the tires off of that axle. Same for the other one. We're going to have to ungroup this and pull one of these tires off of that axle. So now, if we printed this, we would have, and actually I'm going to shift click this. I'm going to realign these. So I'm going to center align it. And, okay. And I'm going to group them together. Actually, I'm also going to align it to this end right here. And I'm going to group them together. Okay. So now let's say we printed these two axles out here like this, and these two tires over here like this. Now we'd be able to push this axle through here once we print it in real life. And then we'd be able to push this wheel onto this axle on this side to kind of lock it in place so it doesn't fall back out the other side, meaning the axle doesn't fall out over here. And then we'd have a beautiful working car. But the problem with how I have it set up right now is that we have a lot of overhangs. We have a lot of issues where this piece, the axle itself, is printing out over an edge. In addition, just one other small problem is that some of our stuff is not level with the ground. So it's important that everything is printing on the ground. If you have things that are floating, they're going to get wrecked when you try to print them. So we're going to have to rotate this so that this overhang goes away, so that it supports itself as it's printing. So we can give it a 90-degree rotation to stand it up, and then make sure that it's level with the ground. And now when we print this, it'll print this layer, this layer, this layer, and it'll never hit an overhang. Whereas if we printed it as it was before, so let's go look at that, it would print this layer, this layer, this layer, this layer, and then it would start printing this axle, and there'd be nothing below it, so it would just pour this axle out onto the ground, and just, you'd get those random strings, it would be a mess, and your wheel would not work. So we have to print our wheels standing up like this after we group them. And before we group them, you should also make sure to align your axle, which hopefully we are able to do. So I have my axle aligned with my wheel. I'm going to group that together, and I'm going to stand that up. And there's one more thing we should do to get our design ready to print. And that is something I've talked about in every class besides 8th period. Or if I did talk about it in 8th period, I talked about it very briefly. But we want to make these wheels round. So if you see right now on my car that I want to print this out, but my wheels have these hard edges to them. There's these little corners on my wheels. So here, here, here. And the way we get rid of those, the way we round out our wheel, well, let's first talk about why these corners exist. The way Tinkercad makes circles is by making a shape with many, many sides. It takes a polygon and it just gives it a lot of sides. And the more sides it has, the more circular that polygon becomes. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking this side slider and I'm increasing the sides. And as we get more and more sides, those corners get closer and closer together until eventually we can't even really tell that there's corners because the sides are so small and the corners are so close together that it just looks circular. So it's important that we also round out our wheels and our axles by increasing those sides. You could also round out these holes inside of your wheels. That's also beneficial. Once we do that, our car will be ready to decorate. Let me just finish rounding all this out. Alrighty, so we now have rounded wheels, rounded axles, and I'm just going to shift click this wheel and this axle, this wheel and this axle, and group that back together. And those are ready to print. I'm going to group these wheels separately because they need to be adjusted a little bit. Let's group this wheel together. And let's lay this out flat so that that's easier to print as well. Let's lay these wheels down flat. Okay, now everything is almost ready to print. I need to level this wheel to the ground so it's not floating. Our printer follows the rules of gravity. We cannot print things floating in the air. Let's make sure everything's on the ground. Okay, so this would be perfect. This would be something I could print for you guys. But the thing is, I don't want to print, a default, instructions were followed kind of car. I want to print your guys' original beautiful designs. So what I would want to see from you guys is to maybe take maybe hearts, maybe stars, and you can decorate your car. So maybe you could put a heart on top. This is something I saw a few students do. Maybe you could put, skulls on it, stars on it. Maybe put your logo on it. Maybe create original SVJ files and add them to your design. Whatever you guys think looks cool, you guys are free to do. I'm going to put a slight rotation on this. I want to rotate this the other way. -12. Whatever kind of little decorations you want to add, you can. I've seen students give it sunglasses, bunny ears, all sorts of things. And that's the kind of stuff I'd love to see from you guys. And yeah, so once this is ready to print, decorated, and all sorts of things, you can submit it to the new assignment for today. And I would be very happy to see that work from you. Thank you guys for participating in these Asynchronous Fridays and getting all your work done. The projects have been beautiful so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have come up with. Please make sure to submit this to today's assignment, or you will probably not get a good grade for the week. Thank you, and I will see you all on Monday.